The best songs of the decade so far. Yes, we're carrying out the impossible task. We're trying to capture the essence of an entire decade so far into one list. It feels like you're missing out on so many other amazing songs by doing lists like this, because there are so many that come out in a single year, let alone decade so far. But we're going to try and do it. We're going to capture the essence of the decade. We're going to try and condense the best songs of the decade so far, and I'm only speaking for myself at the end of the day. This is my personal list. I'm not speaking in an objective sense. I'm not telling you these are officially the best songs and nobody can disagree. I'm only speaking for me. These are, to me, the best songs of the 2020 so far, and yeah, we're just gonna have to roll with it and hope it turns out well. And you guys can at least maybe get some recommendations out of this, because there might not be songs that everybody is talking about or you've heard of before, but I'm sure there'll be some you'll definitely agree with, and hopefully you enjoy the video anyway. Yes, Pitchfork did inspire me to do this. I did see their list, thought it was an interesting idea to do this. I've never done like a decade so far video before in this kind of way. I didn't do it for the 2010s, although I started my channel a little bit later on, so I always missed the boat in that sense. So let's do it for the 2020s. We're here for it, let's go. One thing I do want to mention beforehand, I'm not going to put this in a particular numerical order. I think doing that for a decade so far list is actually a little bit silly. No hate on Pitchfork and how other publications do it, but I just think putting it in an order when the decade hasn't even been, completed yet, I personally think is a bit silly. I'll do that at the end of the decade. This is just going to be me running down through the songs of each year so far. There's pretty much going to be like 10 songs per year that I'm just going to run down as being my favorites of the decade so far. I'll go into detail for 5 of the songs, and then the other 5 will just kind of be on screen for you to see. Hopefully you get the gist of it. I don't want to put it in an order. I also don't want to give away any secrets for my 2024 list, because I'm doing this in October and 2024 hasn't even finished yet. So if I put it in a numerical order, I'm really giving away my year-end list for 2024. I don't want to be doing that. Hopefully you're with me though, you're on board with this and you enjoy, and you can stick around. If you're new to the channel, make sure you're subscribed, share the video around too, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Consider as well, if you're feeling really generous, looking at my Patreon and supporting me over on there. That would be wonderful. But until then, let's stick around for the ride. We're going to start with 2020 songs first. Let's go. On the floor, Perfume Genius. We're kicking this off with an absolute timeless anthem for me. This to me doesn't sound like it came out only in 2020. This song, it feels like it's been with me for years. It feels like it's born out of the 80s. It's just such a beautiful song. It's so euphoric as well. Perfume Genius's vocals are to die for. On nearly every track ever that Perfume Genius has put out, he's an incredible vocalist, really captures the emotions, the feelings so well. I absolutely just think this is a stunning song and has to be mentioned for the decade easily. Next I want to mention DJ Sabrina, the Teenage DJ, with Next to Me. This is truly one of the most uniquely sounding house songs I think I've ever heard. The entire album is just full of really life-affirming house tunes with these incredible samples that live on and are repeated throughout, but they never get boring. It never gets old, even though this song basically follows a similar pattern from start to end. I'm nearly falling over as I say that. Yeah, really unique sounding song for me. I just think it's such a beautiful house tune and it just feels so eternal. It's really stunning the way that they were able to put this together. Absolutely a decade highlight for me. Next I want to mention Gospel for a New Century by Eve Toomer. I think you could probably say Kerosene. I think a lot of people would maybe go for that one over this one, but there's just something about this song that really resonated with me. I think the kind of late 2000s sort of TV on the radio Gorillaz vibe that comes through on this track I think is super unique. I think the kind of glam rock aesthetics that Eve Toomer was able to capture on this entire album was really fantastic. Just a really replayable album that when I initially reviewed it I said it was really good, but over time it's just really stuck with me. Have to mention this one. I want to also mention Cane Train by Machine Drum and Freddie Gibbs came through here. One of the most underrated Freddie Gibbs verses ever. I feel like everybody knows that Freddie Gibbs is this incredible rapper, and yet nobody ever talks about this song. I guess because Machine Drum isn't really pulling in those kind of listeners in that sense, but it's a huge shame because the way he's spitting on this track is just fantastic. That sample, the way it drives is really earwormy too. Just think it's fantastic. Combining like machine drums, drum and bass world with this track, even though it's not a drum and bass sound, but it's kind of got some of the elements kind of creeping into the song with a more like a hip hop aesthetic to it. I think it's really cool. I think it's a really cool match made in heaven. Machine Drum's just full of like golden nuggets throughout his discography like this. He's got so many amazing collaborations. This year he had one with Tinashe, which was fantastic too. He's just full of them, and this is a great one. And finally, for the one I want to go into detail for 2020 is Porcelain by Ichiko Aoba. A beautiful song this is. It's magical, it's whimsical, it feels like you're walking through an enchanted forest that just has so many things that make you want to stop and look at, and just you never want to leave. It's just a really beautiful song that is just full of good intentions. Like, there is not a bad bone in this song's body. It is really beautiful to die for, I would even say. Ichiko Aoba has always been an amazing artist, but something about this song and this album was just way more whimsical in a way that she hadn't done before, and I have to highlight it. An unlikely song of the year for me from 2021 was Famous Last Words by Milady. Just this really fun indie rock band from the UK. Really not really pulling up trees in terms of major numbers or anything like that, but discovering this song, this band, was a real highlight of that year for me. And something about this song just really stuck with me. Just one that I go back to so much, ended up being one of my most played songs ever, that I just feel like I felt like I had to call it Song of the Year for that year, even if it is a bit of an oddball choice, but I absolutely adore it. Also want to mention Welcome to the Garden by Emily Steinwall. I think that is one of the most ambitious and just progressive songs of the decade so far. What an underrated gem this album is, and this song kicks it off in the boldest, most brash way you can imagine, with like a 10-minute track that goes through all of these detours and these heavy like crashes with the instrumentation, these wailing vocals as well. It's an unbelievable song. I am really trying my best to promote the hell out of this song for people, just to be aware of it, because it's an incredible talent that is going way too under the radar. And yeah, has to be a decade highlight for me for sure. Yola with Dancing Away in Tears. This was a really stunning track from the year 2021, and one that is just aging so beautifully as well. Just this really like subtle track that has like, it's so humble in how it presents itself, and yet she's like one of the best vocalists around right now. It's crazy how good she is. Absolutely adore the sounds of this. Kind of got a really lovely soulful vibe coming through as well, like the classic sounds of soul really come through here. Love the lyrics as well. Just a very sort of heartfelt breakup song. Just feels very much like, I'm happy for you, like you go and do your own thing. It's sad that it's time, but you know, I'm not going to be bitter about it. I love that vibe to it. Kind of like a Someone Like You by Adele in that sense. Very kind of like wholesome in the way that it's presenting the breakup, not bitter in any kind of way. Just very much you know, let's just kind of go our own ways. Really love that about this song. Really fantastic stuff. I want to mention James Blake, Say What You Will, probably the most unlikely song you'll see out of this entire video, because I've never really called myself a James Blake fan. In fact, I didn't even like this album, but good God, James Blake just has a way of just hitting with one song with every album he puts out. Like, there's always just that one song that sticks with me, and this is one of them. Really fantastic stuff, kind of holding the mirror up back to his fans and kind of just talking about how he's perceived in that kind of way. Everything just feels so empty and isolated on this song, just kind of very depressing to hear how becoming like a famous person has impacted him. It's really sad, but the vocals are just ridiculous. When it kind of goes in that a cappella moment where the instrumentation just all dies off and he's just say what you will, hits me so hard every time. And finally, for the detail of the 2021 picks, I want to go with The Dress by Dijon. Absolutely one of the biggest growers of the decade so far. This wasn't even on my 2021 list, I don't think. If you go back to that video, I don't even think it was even in the top 50, which is crazy because I absolutely adore this song. Really, really unique vibe to it. I think it's got that kind of bedroom pop style that very much impacted an artist like McGee, who put out an album this year that was really beloved. But yeah, really fantastic lyrics. Kind of like, you know, just wanting to kind of bring back the spark between two people in a really wholesome way. I love it. The vocals, fantastic. Just something about the song just feels so eternal as well. That's the thing about this list. Like, a lot of my picks are just songs that I'm sort of thinking about in 5 years' time, and I know I'll still love them. And this is just one of those songs. It just feels like it'll never age. It's just going to be timeless. That's why it's got to be on this list for me. 2022 now, The Weeknd, Less Than Zero. A pretty unlikely Song of the Year candidate, really. I love The Weeknd and I thought Dawn FM was great, but to have a song by The Weeknd as Song of the Year has never really happened for me before in any other year, and he's had a lot of great years. He's had a lot of great albums, and he's been a mainstay in music for more than 10 years now, but to have a Song of the Year by him was quite surprising for me. But Less Than Zero just captures something that I've never really heard from The Weeknd before. Like, I've seen people kind of describe it as like a Disney sounding song, and I think that's a little harsh. I don't think you're going to hear this on a film like friggin' Luca or Encanto or any of the like Frozen films. Like, it doesn't have that vibe to it to me, but it has a special magic to it that makes it feel so separate from everything else he's done in terms of how it sounds. Because for years he was making more like dark type music and sort of like foreboding and demented sort of vibes are coming through from his dark R&B days, where he was singing about things that were a little more hedonistic and stuff like that. Whereas this song is still hedonistic. I mean, he's very much just kind of looking in the mirror here and basically saying that he's worth nothing, really, or less than nothing. And he's kind of come to terms with everything and how he's treated girls all these years, and just kind of realized who he is, which I found to be such a really interesting song. But yeah, the way it sounds, I think, is so unique. It's really, really powerful when the chorus hits. I love it. Love it. Absolutely love it. Another song that somehow wasn't even in any of my lists when I made them, but it's really grown on me. The Big Thief album generally has, and Simulation Swarm. Mad to think I didn't have this in my top 50 at the time, but this is definitely a decade highlight. This is one of the most beautiful folky sort of acoustic-y tracks that you're going to hear this decade. Really, really lovely stuff. Just the vocals glide so nicely over this track. Really, really stunning song. Cannot fault it at all. I want to mention Bad Habit. Absolutely adore this song by Steve Lacy. Definitely one of the best hits of the decade so far. A pretty surprising hit, actually. It wasn't really one that you'd expect to blow up in the way it did, but massively welcoming this, because it's just such a youthful vibe. There's lots of like great little vocal melodies, loads of little hooks within hooks, and it kind of never really feels like it's just staying in one place. He switches up his vocals a lot. Absolutely adore this song. Again, got a bit of a bedroom pop vibe in the way that Dijon song that I mentioned does too. But yeah, I really love this one. Venus Flytrap by Breakance. That was an album that is really, really not gone away out of my rotation. I play this album so often. Comparatively to how often I go back to albums, I don't like to replay albums too much because I don't want to lose the spark and I don't want to get bored of them. But Breakance is just like immune to that, because I just go back to this album all the time. And to be fair, you know, songs like Stung, songs like Bugging, songs like Argyle, like they kind of keep competing for my favourite song on the album. So I could have picked any Breakance song really, but I just feel like Venus Flytrap, since the get-go, since it came out, since I did a reaction to it on this channel, I've just never really put it down. So I kind of just went with it based on that, really. Adore this track. Really cool, unique sort of influences coming through to craft this really unique sounding kind of poppy rock song, really. Love it. Breakance, I think, will be somebody that more people will be having at the forefront of their minds in years to come. I think he's just not somebody that's quite caught the attention just yet, but I think there's places to go for him for sure. And finally, for the detailed one I want to go into for 2022, it's got to be Virgo's Groove. Had to pick something from Renaissance because I think this is genuinely one of the best pop albums we're going to see for the entire decade for sure. Just incredible like switch for Beyonce to go from the style of music she was making to just enter this more kind of groovy house dance vibe for the entire album. That was just really, really refreshing to hear somebody go into this sound and do it really well. We had that Drake album that came out within the month of this one, and that sounded really botched compared to this. But Beyonce is so fluid with her genres. She's so creative. She can kind of do many things and do it right every time. Amazing to have such a mainstream artist be so versatile and make songs as good as this as well. Virgo's Groove just hits the spot. Oh, it's so good. "2023. Oh yes, Sufjan Stevens with Shit Talk, an ambitious, lengthy song. Again, like Welcome to the Garden, that just feels like it goes through so many phases and never really loses steam at any point in the song. Just an incredible track from him. Really amazing to see somebody so late in their career making these songs that feel like they are just career defining tracks. And how many songs does he have already in his career that you could call that or attach that label to? Too many, Sufjan. Incredible stuff. Really captures that like awful state when you get into that like argumentative period with a partner and you just want to just like let it all go and just like, can we just forget all this now and just go back to where we were? It really captures that wonderfully, I think. Really amazing track. Fam Jam 4000, Jordan Ward. Want to mention that one as well. Just one of the catchiest little fun pop R&B tunes of the decade as well. So replayable. It's kind of like the Bad Habit of the year it came out. Just really stuck with me, really resonated with me. Just couldn't put it down. Just one of the catchiest little tunes of the decade so far. I cannot believe I don't see this on many decade lists too. I just feel like people aren't paying attention to Jordan Ward. They absolutely should be though. Amazing stuff. I really like the idea of the song too. The lyrics kind of go a bit overlooked on this track, but very much just like, you know, family will always be family. At the end of the day, we might not be talking all the time, but I've always got you and you've got me. And it's a really nice little sentiment as well. Love it. Just kind of wanting to bring that love back between two family members. I really like the sentiment of this track. Under Tongues, James Ivy, my guy James Ivy, one of the most exciting new artists at the moment. I played this EP more than any other EP ever, which I think says a lot. I like EPs, and I always make an EPs list at the end of every year, of course, and I go back to them, especially the ones that I love the most. But I've never really gone back to an EP as much as I do this one. This is genuinely just a really mad anomaly within the world of EPs for me. Just super, super replayable stuff. Had to go with Under Tongues as well. Really love the vibe of this track. He's kind of got a bit of a 1975 feel to some of his music too. So I think anybody that's a big fan of that vibe would love this. Love the sort of lyrical sentiment of this track as well. Another one that I really appreciate with the lyrics where basically just like the anxieties of relationships and, you know, are you loving me for me or are you loving the idea of me? I think that's a great little line in the track on the chorus too, because I feel like that can apply to a lot of people where you just want somebody to fit the mold of what you think they are and yet they don't quite live up to that, and you end up loving them for the idea of what you think rather than themselves, and it's not like an unconditional thing. I think the lyrics are great on this song. Amazing song, great tune as well. Want to mention I've Been Young by George Clanton. God, watching this live was just magical, man. This is one of the most breathtaking tracks of the decade. Captures an incredible vibe. The baggy sort of 90s Manchester sound being bled into his vaporwavy sound and the synth pop sound that he's been going for. Just the dreaminess of his sound combining with this is ridiculous, remarkable sound that he came up with here. Hachi is also trying to do a similar thing with her music. She's not quite as committed to it though, because I don't think every song off of her last album quite did it like this, but tracks like The Rhythm on her album, I feel like we're doing a similar thing to this. She's a great artist as well, by the way, not trying to put her down, but yeah, amazing stuff. Just one of the most euphoric tracks of ever. Wow, what a song. Really great stuff as well. It's kind of like looking back on your older youthful days, seeing the mistakes you made, understanding that you've been in that place where you did silly things and kind of wanting to own up to that and reflect on that. Really wonderful stuff. For the final pick that I want to talk about for 2023 is Sorry Not Sorry by Tyler, the Creator, which, yeah, what a career-defining track this is. Again, another artist that is consistently fantastic and yet still manages to just wow me with each release. Just what a song this is. Very much just kind of like the perception of him and just how people have this parasocial relationship with Tyler, and just kind of like him just looking back on all of that and just being basically like, look, do you want me to apologize for all of this? It's a really interesting lyrical track, but I think it's really presented in such a great way. Musically, that production is fantastic. It's stellar. This is one of the best beats he's ever rapped over too. Just amazing to see such growth for him. Like, he's consistently putting out fantastic music now, and he's so far into his career. So good. We're up to 2024, the fifth and final year of this decade that I want to highlight, and it would be silly not to start with the Kendrick tracks from this decade. May as well shove 3 of them out of the 5 picks here because they're just all so replayable and fantastic to me, and have been my top 3 most played songs of this entire year period as well. Like That, which started it all off with Future and Metro Boomin, Euphoria, and Not Like Us, which ended it all, which, yeah, what a run of tracks from this man. I know 616 in LA and Meet the Grahams are also really good in their own right too, but I just went with these 3 because they're the most impactful to me personally. I've gone back to these ones the most by far. But yeah, Like That, kicking it all off, I think will always have just such a sentimental value to me, just having that moment of being like, oh my God, this is going to happen. And then J. Cole replying and it being all like all over the place, just everything about it, just following it along, following Drake's replies, waiting to see what Kendrick comes back with. Everything about it is just so like impactful for the year 2024 for me. Like That, kicking it all off, I think it's still just a fantastic track in its own right as well. Love Future's verses on there, love the beat. Kendrick's verse is really fun too. Like, even that, as though, although it wasn't like the best diss of the beef, I still find it to be just such a mesmerizing track with so many qualities, and it's so dynamic, and I couldn't not mention it. Euphoria I just find to be so like punchy and just fierce and never really wastes a bar the whole way through. It's a fantastic diss, even though it might not go down as the best diss of the beef really, because Not Like Us is the biggest and most popular and is really doing crazy numbers and consistently doing so as well at such a great rate. I think we might end up forgetting how good Euphoria was because of that, because of how good these bars were and just how punchy it all is. But of course, Not Like Us as well, I want to mention, being just such an anthem as well. What a track this is. Hard really not to focus on these tracks this year. They have to be mentioned as decade defining songs for me. Yeah, easily. I want to mention Death and Romance by Magdalena Bay from the wonderful Imaginal disc, which is really shaping up to be one of the best albums of the year. And Death and Romance is just a stunning track with really lovely lyrics, just really, really heartwarming and wholesome lyrics throughout as well. Yeah, really great stuff from them. And the 5th pick I want to mention, Good Luck Babe by Chapel Roan. Just great to see such a talented artist rise to the top in this way. This song is still right at the top of the charts and is lingering on, and I love it. I think it's great stuff. Really like the lyrics as well, just essentially being like, look, I know the secrets of you. You're with this guy now, but are you really that happy? It's a bit of a cheeky, sassy track, really, but it's really fun as well. Instrumentally, it's great. It's got a bit of like a Hall & Oates vibe to it. It's got that 80s vibe coming through as well. Love the synth track, the Sparks sample, which is really sneakily incorporated into the song, but there is a Sparks sample on here too. Love that as well. Yeah, great stuff. And I'm going to wrap it up there for the 2020s highlights so far. I've given you 5 for each year in detail, but I've also given you 5 extra ones that I wanted to kind of highlight as well. It will appear on screen for you. So you've had 50 songs all in all from me for the 2020s. So yeah, what a treat. So let me know in the comments what you think of my picks. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Will you subscribe, please? Will you also comment and tell me what your favourite tracks of the decade are so far? Are there any glaring misses that I should have included? Well, if there are, let me know. But at the very least, if you're not familiar with any of these tracks, please check them out. I might even put a playlist together just so I can put out there as well for people to have a look at. That might be quite fun. And yeah, hopefully from that you get some great new music and hopefully understand why I've picked the songs I've picked for the decade so far. So yeah, we'll do an albums list as well at some point. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. Hopefully you have gotten something out of this video. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you check out more videos as well. Have a good day. And yeah, happy 2020s decade lists. Yeah, sure. Goodbye.